Hey guys, so a little while ago, McFarlane revealed the Dark Knight Trilogy wave of figures. So we're going to be doing a review on that today. We'll start by looking at the box, and then we will look at each figure individually. We'll compare them to other figures where it makes sense. And then we're also going to take a look and see how accurately that McFarlane made the figures compared to their on-screen inspiration. So stick around and we're going to get right into it. All right, so here we are with our boxes. Right off the bat, Batman is numbered as number 1, Joker is 2, Two-Face 3, and Scarecrow is 4. Not really sure why they put them in this order since Scarecrow is the first villain that he comes up against, but that's fine. And then otherwise, the boxes are pretty much the same in terms of the art. But let's go ahead and go through each of one of them right now. So Batman, you can see he's got 3 batarangs, a gun, and then the 2 Build-A-Figure pieces. Joker, same thing, figure, accessory, a pile of cash, which is kind of funny. And then we've got our Build-A-Piece pieces. Two-Face, same thing, figure, Build-A-Piece. He does not appear to have any accessories, which is kind of a shame, but we'll look into that a little bit more. And then Scarecrow, same thing, figure, looks like he's got some alternate hands, and then Build-A-Figure pieces. So, and then as far as the back goes, they all look pretty much exactly the same. They are all showing that they build Bane, and the only real difference is just that the blue indicating which pieces that the particular figure comes with. The bottom is just showing the card that each one comes with, and each one is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is number 1 with Batman, and then so on and so forth with our other characters. And with that out of the way, I'm going to unbox these and then we'll do the review. So we're going to start with Batman, obviously. Now, what's interesting to me is that this is the costume from The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, as opposed to Batman Begins. So it's an interesting choice that he decided to go with this instead of the one from Batman Begins, but I'm hoping that that means that we'll get another wave of these figures, just so we can kind of complete those characters, because besides the first movie costume, we also don't have Catwoman, and I personally would like a Jim Gordon as well. I think those would be a nice addition to this. Plus, McFarlane could even release a few more variations of like the Joker, and we'll get to why that is in a second. So first, we're actually just going to take a look at the card. Every McFarlane DC Multiverse figure comes with one of these collectible trading cards, and usually it's going to be either a picture of the character, either in comic book form, or a picture of the figure. And then on the back, we have a brief description. Usually these things are pretty generic to the character. In the early days of the McFarlane figures, they were so generic that they were using the same exact descriptions for each version of like Batman and each version of Superman. But now they're at least adding some variation to each one. This Batman comes with 3 batarangs and then this grappling gun. So these are definitely repaints that we've seen before from other figures. This one, I'm unsure if it's a repaint or not. It actually does look pretty good as far as what it would look like on screen. But if there's anybody in the comments that wants to let me know that this is actually not a new piece, then definitely let me know. And then of course, every McFarlane figure comes with one of these little bases. As far as accuracy, this does look pretty good overall. The one exception I can see so far is the nose. I'll do a side-by-side with the movie, and so in the movie the mask actually covers his nose as well. That would be kind of my one problem with that, but otherwise I would say this looks really good. Most of the McFarlane capes are very similar to this. Not a lot of posability with them in any kind of way. And as far as actual articulation, pretty straightforward stuff with our double jointed knees, same with our arms. A lot of people like to refer to this as a diaper, which is kind of true in a lot of ways. This one isn't nearly as pronounced as it is on other figures. It does blend in fairly well. One of my major problems with McFarlane articulation is that the legs don't go up kind of like that. Like it technically does, but my problem is that it stretches against the pelvis piece or the diaper. And I had a figure that I had posed in a way that did that, and I left it that way for a while, and then when I brought it back down to its neutral stance, the plastic didn't quite form back the way this one has. So probably fixable with heat, but I'm not a fan of that myself. Otherwise, a typical toe articulation with McFarlane figures. And we have a head that swivels. Pretty standard stuff there too. And I would say overall a very good likeness to Christian Bale in the Batsuit. Unfortunately, his grappling gun doesn't actually attach to the belt as it does in the movies. Nothing actually attaches to the belt, but we do have some nice detail in the back. And here's a little comparison to another Batman figure. This one is also McFarlane. This is just one of the very many comic book appearances that he has. You can see that the heights are basically the same. I think the chest here doesn't look as good because you can see there's a lot more gaps, but that one is pretty much perfect on the Dark Knight movie one. I think that's really not noticeable at all, and because of the way the body armor is designed, it blends in really well, and you can hardly tell once you have it posed. And then here he is next to Ben Affleck as Batman, as seen in the Justice League film. Next up, we're looking at Scarecrow. So here is his card, and with this one, they are using a picture of the figure instead of a movie still or instead of something else. Pretty generic description on the back. This figure is interesting because in the movie, we do see him like this, but very, very brief. We only see him at the end of the movie like this while he's on the horse. Otherwise, when we do see him with the mask, he is pretty much just fully suited up. As far as accessories, he only has the hands, these alternate hands, and then of course the stand plate. So the nice thing about this garb though is that it does have some level of just movement and flexibility, which I do like. It's not as hard as I've had with other figures before. It does look really good. There's a lot of detail on it, which is really nice. As far as articulation goes, this one unfortunately only gets as far as a 90 degree for the arms. Legs are pretty standard, right, with that double jointed knee. Toe articulation, nothing special there. But the head looks really nice. Close up of the head, you can see its eyes in there looking pretty good. And you can even kind of see that if I squeeze the mask just right, that it moves around. So it's definitely much more like a mask than you might think. You can even see detail where it looks like maggots crawling on the head, even though that was really only visible when you were hallucinating. And there is no way to remove this. As far as I can tell, you would have to cut it off if you really wanted to do that. The suit goes up a decent way, so you can't really tell that it's not suited up the rest of the way up there. I could easily see McFarlane releasing another version of this with the full suit and then just the head like that. Or even one where he's holding the mask and then he just has the head of Cillian Murphy. Now we're looking at the Joker. This time they're using a promo poster that they used for the film. And I think this is a pretty famous one, so this is definitely a good choice. Pretty generic description on the back. As far as accessories, he has this money pile, and it even has a peg for him to stand on. While I like this is really neat, I am sorely disappointed in the lack of other accessories. So besides the standing plate, that's all he has. So no gun, no knife, no alternate hands. It's kind of a bummer. As far as the figure itself, though, it's pretty well executed. We'll do a side-by-side with him and how he appears in the movie. And we'll do a close-up of his head. And they did a really good job getting Heath Ledger's likeness on this figure. I can't tell if it's that they had facial scans of him, the way that Hasbro is able to do with their Marvel Legends MCU stuff, or if it's just they had a sculptor that just really took their time to get as close as possible of an appearance. The coat is stuck on to the vest here, so you can't just remove that. He does have the other appearance in film where he is without the coat, and that's when he's caught and he's in the jail. So I could easily see McFarlane making a version of that as well. The chain here is actually really nice. Even though it is plastic, it's, you know, a bit malleable. You can't move it in a way of like moving it around too much because it will kind of go back to that form. But it's nice that it's not really hard to move. Otherwise, similar articulation here with the elbow, with the knee, double jointed, the toe. I don't need to show you guys all of that. Pretty familiar by now. And really nothing else special. I think this figure would have been so much better had it had just several more accessories. So I think McFarlane shorted us on this one. Here's a quick comparison of our movie Joker with several comic versions of the Joker. You can see that movie Joker is not really based on any one particular Joker, even between the colors, patterns, coats, no coats, whatever it is. And Two-Face. So we're using another promotional graphic from the film when they released it. And then we have our generic back, and of course the standing plate. And this one was shorted even more than the Joker. He has no other accessories at all, but it is a good looking figure. First off, you can kind of see the diaper kind of doesn't look great on this one. I think it's a lot easier to see. I think had they maybe added some more wrinkles, or if they shaped it more like Joker's where it's not as noticeable, then I think it would have looked better. But other than that, the detail that they did to his suit, and then obviously his head, looks really, really good. The likeness to Aaron Eckhart himself isn't so great from the front side. It looks a little bit better on the side like that, but when facing front like that, it's not so good. And I'm gonna try to do some photo magic to see how it would appear without the wounds to the left side of his face. Otherwise, the hand holding the coin is really cool. A little bit of QC could have been better on the fingertips, but it's not entirely unreasonable for a $25-something figure. No details on the coin itself to indicate which side is the scratched up head or just the regular head. Same articulation as pretty much everything else. Nothing special to show you there. And finally, we're gonna take a look at Bane. So the Build-A-Figure doesn't come with any card, unfortunately. That's one of the things I don't like about the McFarlane Build-A-Figures. But let's put them together. Before we put them together, let's take off the little diaper thing and you get a better idea of what the articulation looks like. It's a very simple skeletal system that you can see here, which isn't too bad, but personally I'd be worried about how long this will last with a lot of posing and playing with it, because I think there's a lot of weak spots in there. But this is what we get. And here we have movie Bane. So first, let's do a close-up. And I'd say that's pretty good for how the movie looks. You can hardly tell that it is Tom Hardy even in the movie, so I can't say that they did a good or bad job necessarily here either with the sculpt. But overall, it does look really good. And even though McFarlane cheaped out on the other figure accessories, we do have multiple different hands that we have with Bane. So we have the fists that are already on him, and then multiple different open, kind of pointing, grabbing hands for him. As far as articulation goes, it should be mostly the same. However, I think one of the cool things would be being able to get him to do the pose where he is holding onto his vest. So the hands are pretty hard to swap. And my concern is how long that will last before it breaks. Because putting the hands on and removing them takes quite a bit of effort. So keep that in mind when you're swapping hands around. So this is the closest I can get him into putting him into the pose where he's holding onto his vest with both of his hands. I tried switching to the other hands, but they're just too open. Not great, I would say. I think, you know, that's one of his major poses in the movie, so it would have been nice to see him do that. I would not be surprised if McFarlane makes another version of Bane. He has several looks in the movie. In particular, the one with him in the coat when he's on the football field is probably a pretty famous one. So here is our movie Bane right next to two other versions that McFarlane has previously released. The one on the right is the Last Night on Earth Bane, and then the one on the left is a fairly accurate comic version of Bane. So that one is obviously gigantic, and we'll stick a regular Batman right next to him. And that's actually pretty close to the size difference in the comic books, so that's pretty neat. And in case you were wondering, here's a size comparison of the McFarlane Dark Knight Batman and the Marvel Legends Iron Man from Endgame. So this is a 6-inch scale on the left, and we have 7-inch scale on the right. So they're definitely not great standing next to each other, but once you have them posed, it's not too bad. So that's the whole wave, and if you like this video, then please give me a like, and otherwise, if you like these types of videos, then check out my buyer's guides playlists over here.